Federal appeals court in San Francisco is deciding the fate of President Trump's executive order calling for extreme vetting. President Trump says he's confident he will prevail even if he has to take the fight to the Supreme Court.
We're going to take it through the system. It's very important. It's very important for the country, regardless of me or whoever succeeds at a later date. I mean, we have to have security.
A decision could come at any moment. Also tonight, the Senate confirming Betsy DeVos for Education Secretary after a historic tie-breaking vote by Vice President Mike Pence. President Trump says Democrats are playing politics with his nominees.
We're having a hard time getting approvals, and it's only a delay tactic. It's all politics.
We'll take that up with Randy Evans, Matt Schlapp, and Liz Peek. And Fox News today learning that Iran removed a powerful missile from a launch pad east of Tehran about the same time that the Trump administration put Iran on notice. What's behind the about face? We'll have a full report straight ahead. And good evening, everybody. I'm Tom Sullivan in for Lou Dobbs. And legal arguments over President Trump's extreme vetting order wrapping up at this hour. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals now weighing whether to reinstate a temporary ban on immigrants from those 7 countries entering the U.S. The Trump administration tonight saying it is confident that the 3-judge panel will restore the president's executive order. Fox News chief White House correspondent John Roberts has our report.
Tom, tonight's hearing was not to determine the constitutionality of the president's extreme vetting order. What tonight was all about was whether or not the president can keep that order in effect while the constitutional case goes forward. Talking law and order with members of a sheriff's association this morning, President Trump expressed frustration that he's in a legal battle at all.
I actually can't believe that we're having to fight to protect the security in a court system, to protect the security of our nation. I can't even believe it. And a lot of people agree with us, believe me.
A career attorney for the Justice Department tonight argued that there is no fight over the president's power to address national security, that he has, quote, expressed statutory authority to suspend entry of any class of aliens to protect the national interest. That authority, the DOJ insists, derives from the 1952 Immigration and Nationality Act, which states, whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens or of any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interest of the United States, he may, by proclamation, and for such period as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions he may deem to be appropriate. While the law was crafted at the height of the Cold War, Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly today said its application is just as relevant now. And he fell on his sword in front of Congress, apologizing for not briefing them before the extreme vetting program was rolled out.
In retrospect, I should have, this is all on me, by the way, I should have delayed it just a bit so that I could talk to members of Congress, particularly the leadership of committees like this, to prepare them for what was coming.
3 other points the White House will make to the court: that the ban does not target solely Muslims, it does not bar legal permanent residents, and that Washington State and Minnesota have no standing to bring the case on behalf of residents. What the White House wouldn't say today is what the president will do if the Ninth Circuit doesn't reinstate the immigration ban.
If he does not prevail at the Ninth Circuit, will he take this to the
I'm not going to get, let's see where it goes first. I think our goal right now is to get to a point we can argue it on the merits. We feel confident based on how the court has reacted in Massachusetts that we're going to be good on the merits.
The president today indicated he's in it to win it.
We're going to take it through the system. It's very important. It's very important for the country, regardless of me or whoever succeeds at a later date. I mean, we have to have security in our country.
It's not likely that we'll hear anything from the Ninth Circuit tonight in terms of a decision. We may as early as tomorrow, but some legal watchers think more likely later in the week. Tom?
All right, we'll wait. Thank you, John Roberts. Meantime, turning to Capitol Hill, the Senate today voting to confirm President Trump's choice for Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, with Vice President Pence casting the historic tie-breaking vote. Senate Democrats under fire for their unprecedented obstruction, confirming the fewest cabinet secretaries under President Trump since George Washington. Fox News chief congressional correspondent Mike Emanuel has our report.
Tom, good evening. Betsy DeVos has been sworn in as the new education secretary. That's after Vice President Mike Pence made history by being the deciding vote.
On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 50. The Senate being equally divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative and the nomination is confirmed.
Despite two Republicans defecting, Maine's Susan Collins and Alaska's Lisa Murkowski. DeVos is now going to be part of the Trump cabinet, even though she was a target of Democrats, the teachers union, and the education establishment from the very beginning.
It's not Democrats who are bitter about the election. It's the American people who are bitter about the nomination of Betsy DeVos, and that's why millions and millions of calls, almost unprecedented on a cabinet nomination, have poured into this Capitol.
Democrats spent about 24 hours on the floor trying to pressure one more Republican to reject DeVos.
Is this the best of the best? Is this a knowledgeable candidate who understands the federal law? Is this a candidate who comes to us without conflicts of interest?
Key Republicans defended DeVos, noting President Trump didn't want someone from the education establishment.
Would you be surprised that a Republican president would be for charter schools? Are you really surprised that a Republican president has appointed an education secretary who wants to give low-income children more choices of schools?
Senator Jeff Sessions' nomination for Attorney General also passed a procedural hurdle, 52-47, setting up a final confirmation vote likely tomorrow evening if Democrats insist on running out the clock again. Texas Republican Senator John Cornyn said Democrats can stall, but the president will eventually have his cabinet.
They know we're going to be successful. So stunts like staying up all night and making speeches, I'm not sure who they're trying to impress other than their dysfunctional base.
Majority Leader Mitch McConnell predicted, quote, dysfunction fatigue will eventually set in if Democrats insist on burning 30 hours for each cabinet secretary. That's especially because the three who are going to get a vote this week are expected to be confirmed. Tom?
Right. Thank you, Mike Emanuel at the Capitol. Meantime, we are following a developing story out of Iran tonight. It appears that the Iranians have removed a ballistic missile from a launch pad. Fox News national security correspondent Jennifer Griffin is at the Pentagon tonight with exclusive new satellite imagery.
U.S. officials have been monitoring this launch pad since Iran launched a medium-range ballistic missile from it over a week ago. New satellite images obtained by Fox News from a private satellite company show a flurry of activity at the launch pad 140 miles east of Tehran in the wake of that missile test on January 29th. That launch prompted an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council, and a day later the White House issued a strong warning.
As of today, we are officially putting Iran on notice.
This image from February 3rd, the same day that the U.S. Treasury announced new sanctions against 13 Iranian individuals and 12 Iranian companies in response to the missile test, shows over the course of 5 days, Iran quickly cleaned up the site and prepared another missile on the same launch pad at Simnan. U.S. officials tell Fox News the missile now has been removed from the launch pad. It's a surprising about-face, and the motives are not clear. The ImageSat international photos, verified by U.S. officials, shows Iran prepared to launch a Safir missile, which is used to put a satellite into space. The Pentagon is concerned because this missile uses the same components as those needed for an intercontinental ballistic missile. The Safir is similar to a North Korean No-Dong missile.
President Trump has severely criticized the various agreements reached between Iran and the Obama administration, as well as the United Nations, as being weak and ineffective. Instead of being thankful to the United States in these agreements, Iran is now feeling emboldened.
Today, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, spoke publicly for the first time since President Trump took office.
He says be thankful. No, we are not thankful at all. Why should we be thankful? For sanctions? For breeding the Islamic State? For setting fire to the region? They have set fire to Syria. They have set fire to Iraq. Why should we be thankful?
And while it's not clear why Iran moved that missile from the launch pad, experts say it could be a technical problem, or perhaps Iran is reacting to the new sanctions from Washington. Tom?
Very interesting. Thank you, Jennifer Griffin, over at the Pentagon. And just an update, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals now has wrapped up its hearing. A decision, well, it could come at any time. We're coming right back with much more. Stick around. We'll be right back. President Trump says he will not back down on his extreme vetting executive order.
this court case. It would be very helpful to keeping the wrong people out of our country. We're being very, very tough with the vetting, tougher than ever before.
We'll take up the president's fight to make America safe again with Randy Evans. He joins us next. And DHS Secretary John Kelly gives an important update for that Great Wall on our southern border.
I'd like to see that we would be well underway within 2 years.
We'll talk about that and much more up next. Stay with us.
Well, Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly making it clear today that President Trump's extreme vetting executive order is lawful and constitutional. Kelly testified before a House committee also criticizing the Washington state federal judge's ruling halting the order.
I have nothing but respect for our judges, but they live in a different world than I do. I'm paid to worst case it. He's paid to, in a very academic environment, make a call, and I don't criticize him for that. That's his job. But I'm the one that is charged with protecting the nation, the homeland, and I intend to do that.
Yeah, he's got the real deal job. Meantime, we're standing by again for that Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling. The 1 hour hearing has taken place, and we'll find out. It could come at any moment what happens out in San Francisco. Meantime, joining me now, former chairman of the Republican National Lawyers Association, Randy Evans. And Randy, this whole case gets to be kind of wonky because of the legal rules about it. I've got a little cheat sheet here about what happens if they rule this way or that way. What's your take on this Ninth Circuit even being involved in? There's some question about whether they even have the right to be.
Well, that's right. I mean, really, there are three basic issues that will be at play here. The first is called standing, which is whether or not these two states have the ability to even bring the lawsuit. To do that, they have to show they've been aggrieved or they've been harmed. Their argument is to say that there are individual citizens in their states, such as companies and universities, that are being limited because people can't get back into the country. The obvious question is, why aren't those people the plaintiffs as opposed to the states? Really, I think if the Ninth Circuit follows the law, the case should be kicked out on the standing issue alone.
Yeah, but
the second issue.
But that's the key. If they'll follow the law. But you know, the reputation of the Ninth Circuit is very liberal and the most overturned circuit court of any of them by the Supreme Court. So, do you believe that they always follow the law?
Well, I think the Ninth Circuit is certainly the most liberal circuit in the entire country, and they are the most reverse circuit. I think here we're at a little bit of a disadvantage because should this liberal circuit decide to uphold the ban, then it would go to the U.S. Supreme Court, where it would end up a 4-4 tie, leaving in place the district court judge's ruling in Washington. You can think about how crazy that would be. Think about the additional time pressure that would put on the timing of Judge Gorsuch's nomination and confirmation before the U.S. Senate. It would put enormous pressure to get him to move that a little faster, move it up the track.
I was listening to the conference call before coming on the show tonight, and there was back and forth about the fact that the Solicitor General for the state of Washington was arguing for the state of Washington and Minnesota. And he said that, listen, if you go along with our idea, the judge in Seattle will have a hearing a week from Friday to actually have a hearing on the merits. So it sounds like they're still thinking about speeding it up, but I wouldn't expect that that would change anything.
Well, I think implicit within that is an admission on the second part, which is whether or not the federal government, specifically President Donald Trump, got his day in court. Remember, the hearing on the temporary restraining order was a bit 15 minutes or so, and they really didn't give an opportunity for anyone to be heard, briefs to be filed, any kind of record. Imagine enjoining the President of the United States, who has made a determination that the national interest of the entire country is at stake, and he wants to vet, more severely or significantly vet people coming into the country, and you have a sitting district court judge in Washington deciding, oh no, I'm going to overrule the president's determination of what's in the best interest of the country. You can see why I think they're backing off of that a little bit, and they're insisting, oh no, we'll give a hearing, we'll have a really fast hearing.
But I know this isn't a fact-gathering case, but at the same time, I was listening the judge from that's in Phoenix, the 85-year-old, the oldest one of the judges. He was asking about it. Well, has anybody really been arrested from any of these any of these 7 countries. I don't think that's happened. And in fact, Byron York reported earlier today, 60 people since 9/11 from those countries have been arrested for terrorism. So the facts get all mixed up in one of these cases, don't they?
They really do. I think that's President Carter's appointee you're talking about here.
Yes.
And I think he was the one who was expressing some suspicion about, well, has anybody actually ever been arrested? Prior to this, the answer was yes. That's how President Obama's administration decided these are the 7 countries from which we need to do more significant vetting, where we need to do a better job of vetting. And so it shouldn't have come as a surprise. But had they had a full evidentiary hearing before issuing a national ban, basically vitiating, overruling the president, they would have known that before today.
Then these questions would have been answered. Randy Evans.
That's right. You're right.
Thank you for your expertise. Thanks for joining us tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet. Well, breaking news tonight, at least 4 tornadoes have ripped through the South today, causing widespread damage in its path. One of the hardest hit areas, New Orleans, where tornadoes demolished homes and businesses, leaving thousands of people without power. Fortunately, no deaths have been reported. There are injuries, though. Louisiana's governor has declared a state of emergency. Well, be sure to vote in tonight's poll. Do you believe the Democrats are sincere in their efforts to obstruct the Trump cabinet, or is this just politics? Cast your vote on Twitter, @LouDobbs. And a reminder, follow Lou on Twitter, @LouDobbs. Like the show on Facebook and Instagram, @LouDobbs tonight. And on Wall Street today, a record-breaking day for stocks. The Dow Jones Industrial is up 38 points, S&P up a fraction, and the NASDAQ, check it out, up 11. That's a new all-time record high for the NASDAQ. Volume, 3.4 billion shares. And markets recording a whopping $2.1 trillion in paper gains since back in the election November 8th. And the trade gap topping $502 billion last year. Not good. That's the largest trade deficit that we've had in 4 years. And a reminder, listen to Lou's reports 3 times a day, coast to coast. He's on the Salem Radio Network. Well, up next, tensions are flaring between President Trump and Democratic lawmakers in California.
California, in many ways, is out of control, as you know. And from a economic standpoint, people are leaving California, going to Texas and other places that run in a different manner. But we'll see what happens. We will certainly not stand for sanctuary, even cities, let alone states.
Well, conservative commentator David Horowitz, he joins me next. President Trump today responding to criticism he's facing for allegedly drawing a moral equivalence between America and Vladimir Putin's Russia. President Trump tweeting, and I quote, "I don't know Putin, have no deals in Russia, and the haters are going crazy, yet Obama can make a deal with Iran, #1 in terror, no problem." Joining me now, Mike Gallagher, host of the Mike Gallagher Radio Show on the Salem Radio Network, and columnist for the Fiscal Times, Liz Peek. And where do you want to start? Because the world is crazy right now.
That's what Liz says.
The world is crazy,
Liz,
for sure.
What do you make of the haters? Because they really are, their heads are exploding still. It's been 3 months.
There's no question. But look, I think part of it is that, yes, they lost. But I think it's even worse that they never imagined that they could lose. They never imagined that this person they considered a clown, et cetera, could actually grab the attention of the American people and win an election over Hillary Clinton. It was just unimaginable. But I think in this issue of the Putin bromance, as it's called, I think this has been such an incredibly shockingly overplayed story now for months. And when you look at really who elevated Putin to the world stage, it was President Obama. I mean, Putin was indeed isolated. His country's economy was shrinking. Who brought him back from the dead? It was Obama giving him control of what was going on in Syria.
And I don't understand, frankly, why there's this obsession with trying to have all this animosity and antagonism towards Russia.
Yeah, good question.
Tomorrow I'm going to, shameless plug, I'm going to have Senator Lindsey Graham on my radio show. He's been a little miffed with me lately because I've been so critical of him, but I'm going to ask him tomorrow, what do you want to do? Do you think the American people want to go to war with Russia? President Trump's position has been, I'd rather you know, have a healthy respect from a distance. I'm not buddies with the guy, but I don't want to have World War IV with Russia. The problem is, and what's fun to watch, Tom, frankly, from my side, is this is all they've got left. You got Maxine Waters babbling about impeachment. You have protesters throwing bricks through windows at Berkeley. You have all this craziness because they've got nothing left, Tom. There's nothing in their arsenal.
But Liz, they don't have. They are a minority. But the problem is they want to rebuild their party, of course.
Of course.
Does this connect with the people that are out there in rural America, in the red states, in the 2,600 counties that Donald Trump won? Does it sell them on this is the party to
I think that is the important question for Democrats, and I would argue no, it does not at all. Because let's face it, the people who elected Donald Trump, the surprise voter, was the blue-collar worker who had always supported Democrats and finally just said, enough, I don't like what you're doing. And, you know, one thing that Democrats absolutely refuse to admit is that Obama was popular, but his policies were not popular, whether it was the Iran nuclear deal or not building the Keystone Pipeline. There were a lot of things he did that people really didn't approve of. So when he went out there and said, I want 4 more years, a referendum on my policies, voters says, forget it. And by the way, everything the Democrats are doing now, Chuck Schumer, is he going to really win the hearts and minds of Michigan and Wisconsin and all these people? I don't think so.
Let me try one on you, Mike, because we're both in talk radio. And one of the examples that the Democrats are talking about is, well, let's see, obstruction worked for the Republicans, so we'll do that and we'll win. It reminds me of when the Democrats came up with Air America and said, let's have a left agenda radio state network, and it failed miserably. So you can't just copy somebody without getting this with getting the same result. It doesn't work.
Listen, you're one of the iconic veterans of our industry, and you know about the grassroots nature of our business. Listen, people can protest. I mean, it's okay. You want to scream and yell and carry a sign. What I believe is most important to the American people is the way President Trump is calling out the dishonesty and the corruption of the media. He is right when he talks about stories that are the picking and choosing winners and losers, the ignoring. Look at the New York media here, completely ignoring the aspect of stop and frisk leading to the arrest of a vicious alleged killer of a young, beautiful jogger. The media isn't covering that because they don't want to, because stop and frisk works, and they know it. They don't want to connect the dots. That's what President Trump is nailing.
I think he's a chess player, and he's 5 steps down the road. With this business about the media doesn't cover terrorism, it immediately yanked the chain of the media, and all they're talking about in the fluster is about, yes, we do, there's lots of terrorism out there, and it played right into his hand.
Yeah, exactly. We're terrified of terrorism. Look, I think what actually Trump should do to kind of regain his balance and regain his popularity is, I think he needs to go out and talk to the people. I mean, he's doing that pretty successfully and going around the media.
No.
I think town halls in Pennsylvania. I do.
No, his popularity is there.
I'll tell you why. All right, we can discuss this.
You have to argue later because we're out of time. Liz Peek and Mike Gallagher, both of you, thank you very much for coming by.
Thank you.
Well, up next, California may need to brace itself to lose billions in federal money. Conservative commentator David Horowitz, he takes that up next. Well, President Trump is engaged in an all-out political war with the Democratic leaders of California.
I'm very much opposed to sanctuary cities. They breed crime. There's a lot of problems. If we have to, we'll defund. We give tremendous amounts of money to California.
So defunding is your weapon of choice.
Well, it's a weapon. I don't want to defund a state or a city. I don't want to defund anybody. I want to give them the money they need to properly operate as a city or a state. If they're going to have sanctuary cities, we may have to do that. Certainly that would be a weapon.
Well, joining me now, conservative commentator David Horowitz, author of the new book, Big Agenda, President Trump's Plan to Save America. David, this defunding business, going to happen? Does he have the power? Does he have
I hope that's just the beginning.
Yeah?
Look, we have the leader of our state Senate just publicly said half his family is here illegally, and he's authoring a bill that would make the whole state a sanctuary state. In other words, we're going to welcome criminals, terrorists, and anybody else who wants to run across the border. He should be prosecuted for sedition, as should our governor, as should the mayors of our big cities, Los Angeles and San Francisco. as should Janet Napolitano, the president of the University of California, that's made that a sanctuary campus. This is lawlessness. This is defiance of federal law. And I hope when Jeff Sessions gets in as head of the Department of Justice that he will prosecute them. The Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton said her dream is for open borders. The Democrats don't care enough about this country and its security, particularly in a time when a war has been declared on us by these Islamic terrorists who are already here, but more of them will want to come across our borders.
I think you're, the audience needs to hear about this, because if you look it up, the head of the California Senate, Kevin De Leon, literally did, as you mentioned, he bragged about half his family is illegal. They have fake Social Security cards, fake driver's licenses, fake green cards, fake ID. Them. And I'm going, where are they going with this fake ID? Are they voting with the fake ID?
It's supported. The Democratic Party, the elected officials support this throughout our state, the Democrats. They all need to be prosecuted. This is lawlessness. This is worse than the riots at Berkeley, much worse. Because you have a major American party that's anti-American. No country can exist, as Trump has said, without borders. This book I've written, Big Agenda, deals with this. David, people don't take seriously enough the threat.
David, they've been talking about breaking up the state of California, having some breakaway from the United States, or even people within the state, the red counties versus the blue, and breaking it into two separate states. Is this going to lead to that?
If you're talking about secession, we already had one civil war over secession. Americans will not stand for California seceding, nor should they. Breaking the state up, I don't know, it's more a technical issue. There's no quick fix to this. This is a political battle. And it begins with calling things by their right name. When the Democrats commit sedition, they need to be prosecuted. We shouldn't pussyfoot around this issue. And until that becomes the dialogue, you can't advance the security of the country. How can we have a secure country if we have people openly defying the Department of Homeland Security?
Tell me one piece about your new book about President Trump's big agenda. What is it? What's the big idea there?
Well, first of all, it's why Trump is a game changer. It's because he's not intimidated by political correctness, because he says things as they are. And one of the most important things he said was in the second debate, he said, Hillary, you have to understand, Hillary has tremendous hatred in her heart. The Democratic Party is a party of hate now. They see people who disagree with them as in a basket of deplorables, as racists, sexists, homophobes. Trump is not intimidated by that language, whereas most Republicans are. That's why the Republican Congress did nothing for 6 years, from 2010 till the present. They voted to fund Obamacare and fund the illegal amnesty, even though they were pledged not to. And that's because they were scared of being called obstructionist and racist. Donald Trump is cut from a different mold. He's bold. He's fighting.
I know somebody else like that, too. That would be you. David Horowitz, you're not intimidated by anybody. Yeah.
I waited 30 years for Donald Trump.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much for coming on the program tonight. Good to see you.
We're committed to securing our borders to reduce crime, illegal drugs, human trafficking, especially in border counties. We're also committed to working with law enforcement to stop terrorist attacks. We've got a lot of bad people out there.
Well, joining me now, Arizona State Treasurer Jeff DeWitt, and quite a meeting with the sheriff today. They gave him a letter. They were applauding him. Well, they really like him a lot, the law enforcement community. You see that in your state?
Oh, there's no question. Arizona is on the front lines of the problems that we see with illegal immigration, from the crime to the drugs to the extra costs to our taxpayers. So you see our elected sheriffs there, which, remember, they are elected by the people to be the sheriffs. Very, very supportive that we have now a director, at Homeland that wants to enforce the laws, and a president enforcing laws. The left and the media are going crazy right now because President Trump is actually enforcing laws that are already on the books. It was the previous administration and the previous president that chose to ignore the laws and circumvent Congress. All Donald Trump is doing what the people want, which is to enforce the laws in the books. And, he campaigned all over the country and said this is exactly what he's going to do. And the people elected him, and that's what they expect. So, there's so much extra cost we see to taxpayers and the problems. Donald Trump's going to get it done. And I even love the talk he had with the Mexican president and the quotes he had with Bill O'Reilly, that if Mexico needs help on their side of the border, we'll help them out too. We've got to get this done, and he is committed to fixing it.
And that was interesting because he was talking about drugs, and as you just heard, the president, the clip we played, he was talking about drugs, human trafficking, terrorism. There's a lot of different things that are happening at the border, but it seems like if he's going to get Mexico on board, which one of those would be the one that they would say, okay, great, that's a good idea, we'll work with you on that?
Well, there's no question that Mexico has a huge problem with the drug cartels, and they've been unable to control them on their side of the border, which is why so many drugs and so much crime related to the drugs streams over the border right now. And that's why you see those border sheriffs really asking for help and wanting to get this done. So, it can get done here very quickly if we get on it. But the drug cartels, run parts of Mexico. And that's where Donald Trump says, if you need our help, we'll give you the help. We have to get this fixed. The number one job is to get it fixed. And I'll tell you, Donald Trump should never be underestimated in getting anything done. I worked with him very closely on the campaign, and he is a man of action who can accomplish whatever he puts his mind to, and I wouldn't bet against him.
Yeah, I would imagine everybody that works for him has to run at fast forward speed because he doesn't work slowly. About the wall, General Kelly was talking about the fact that the wall will be well underway within 2 years. That also, Donald Trump's a builder, so you would think that would be something that he's going to do. But a lot of people are going, oh, come on, that's not going to happen. What's your assessment?
My assessment is it will happen because there are laws on the books already. There were some laws passed 11 years ago by Congress that really lay out the groundwork to allow it be done, to be done. The problem is when Congress passed it, it was by a lot of people that love to talk and don't like to do. So while the law is there, nobody ever wanted to actually do anything about it. But they wanted to go back and tell their people that they passed a law so they could get reelected. Well, now we have someone in office that actually wants to do something. So the framework is there that Donald Trump can move forward and build the wall. Here in Arizona, there are a lot of people, including myself, that would very much like to see that happen quickly because it will stop a lot of the problems we have here. And when people talk about the cost of the wall, they're forgetting the massive cost to our society and to our taxpayers of not having a wall.
It is huge. I've seen one number, $115 billion a year for the cost of
we spend over
jails, hospitals, you name it. Yeah.
Arizona is over $1 billion a year ourselves by a lot of estimates and how much the cost of illegal immigration is here. So a $12 billion wall is a savings to stop that.
I was going to say. Jeff DeWitt, good to talk to you again. Thank you so much for joining us.
Always great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Meantime, up next, Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel. He gets brutally honest with Democrats. Guess what he said? He says they're not taking back national power anytime soon.
It ain't going to happen in 2018. Take a chill pill, man. You got to be in this for the long haul. And if you think it's going to be a quick turnaround, like that, it's not.
Wow, guy is supposed to take care of all the crisis, but Matt Schlapp, Gail Trotter, they weigh in on that and more coming up next. Attorney and political analyst Gail Trotter and chairman of the American Conservative Union, Matt Schlapp. Matt, let me start with you.
Sure.
Are we going to start seeing journalists being bumped off? What was she talking about?
Well, it's actually not a laughing matter, and I do think Vladimir Putin has done some things that I find abhorrent. But why are we comparing him to Donald Trump? That's just absurd. The fact is this, which is poll after poll after poll shows that reporters by 70, 80% tend to vote for the liberal candidates, tend to vote for Democrats. We all know that most members of the media are left-wing. This is just a fact. Yeah, and I think what the Trump administration would like is just a little balanced coverage, and I don't blame them.
Gail, but this does seem to be a little bit of rope-a-dope. In other words, he goes out there, the president goes out there and says the media is doing this wrong, the media is doing that wrong, and the media reacts every single time. And whatever else is going on, they report on themselves and their hatred or their animosity towards President Trump.
That's right. You think at some point he's trolling the media, because it is absolutely the Trump administration's responsibility to call out left-wing journalists who are not doing the job of objective journalistic reporting that they're supposed to be doing. There's been story after story after story that has been misrepresented and that is false. Just think of the report about Nancy Sinatra saying that she was complaining that Donald Trump and the First Lady were going to dance to her father's song at the inauguration. Who reported that? CNN. And you might think, well, why is it important that fake news is called out? It's because it's an all-out assault on the truth by these mainstream media outlets.
Matt, listen, let's go back in time. Get your history book out. I remember that. I'm old enough to remember it. But there was a hatred of Richard Nixon by the media. They were out to get him. He finally made a major mistake, and they got him. All right. This seems very similar in that Nixon did not like the media didn't like Nixon. Is this the same sort of thing we're seeing now?
I give Donald Trump great credit for the fact that he calls it like it is, and that's one of the reasons why he won the Republican nomination and a big reason why he's president. And I think we all know that the media tends to be left-wing, and he calls them out on it. Now, he hasn't been right on everything he said, and of course the media will always draw attention to that, but the fact is the underlying charge that the media is trying to discredit him as a legitimate president is absolutely correct, and Donald Trump is right to push back on it. And I think there's a lot of us around the country who are rooting him on in this fight.
Tell me, listen, Gail, this buzz about leaks coming out of the White House, and the question is, where are they coming from? Is there an attack from the bureaucrats? Forget the media. The bureaucrats sitting there that maybe don't like Donald Trump. Are they the ones leaking? What's the buzz in Washington?
Right. Well, leaks are nothing new in Washington, but certainly we've seen a greater tsunami of leaks at a very earlier stage than we necessarily would have seen in other administrations. And it shows that we have a lot of protections for federal workers in the federal government right now, but we need to reconsider those rules, because if these leaks are happening and they're violating federal law, then maybe some of those protections should be rolled back, because otherwise we are not fulfilling the will of the people who elected Donald Trump to come to Washington and do something.
Well, but there are too many leaks, I believe, coming out of the White House and out of the White House team. I do think I would urge them all, they got to work as a team against the left. And I urge Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, who voted against Betsy DeVos, to wake up and realize we have got to fight the left. This fighting each other isn't going to get us anywhere.
No, it's not. And yet it does. Again, like I said, it seems as though this is they're digging their heels in for a long fight. This isn't something that they're going to kiss and make up over in a matter of days, at least not from where I see it. How about you, Gail?
Well, the 11th commandment of Ronald Reagan, that we should not insult fellow Republicans, might be the hardest of all of the commandments.
Yeah, that's
but certainly Matt is right that we need to come together.
Gail Trotter, Matt Schlapp, thank you both very much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
That's it for us tonight. Lou's going to be back tomorrow, and among his guests, Nigel Farage, Ambassador John Bolton, and Ed Rollins. For now, good night from New York.